Parents of a teenager killed in a suspected gang-related shooting in Westbury, Johannesburg, say they lost trust in the police. Two 16-year-olds were gunned down in front of a tuckshop on Thursday. A third teen is fighting for his life in hospital. Police are investigating 2 cases of murder and 3 of attempted murder. So joining me now to unpack gangsterism amongst the young people is Bright Spark Foundation SA Director Welcome Witbooi. Welcome, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. Gang violence continues to be a never-ending nightmare for many South African communities. Why do we still see an increase in gang-related activities?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. I think for me and the work that we do predominantly has shown us that there's, due to the increase of unemployment and also the lack of, kids are not going to school as often as they should. So kids are basically at home not doing anything. So the streets become the next place to go to. So, and because the communities are well aware of the fact that gangs have been around for many, many years. And so that's the kind of processes that you are dealing with at this specific moment.
Yeah, well, every illness has got a diagnosis. I'm sure we can appreciate that, Welcome. Why do gangs even exist? Is it an identity crisis amongst young people? Is it finding a community to belong to? Is it having peers that are on the same agenda? Is it peer pressure? Is it being cool? Why are we still continuing to see young people fall prey to gangs and being lured into the gang community?
Well, it's all of those things that you've just mentioned now, Faith. It is about, identity. It is about, being in and being hip and happening. And gangs normally thrive on young people that do not know who they are. And even that thing of even fatherless homes, for instance, where children are being raised by single parents, single mothers predominantly, and trying to find a father figure, trying to find men in the community that they can look up to. So gangs normally play that pivotal role, especially in young boys' lives. And so therefore boys tend to move towards gangs more often as girls.
Yeah, but then that means that clearly we've got a societal problem here that we need to start from the ground up if we're truly to win the war against gangs. Otherwise, we're going to have gangs exist for many generations to come and lose more young people into the system.
And I think that's the war that we've been fighting since day one. And some people or some members of the community are not making it easy for us, especially when mothers do not want to admit that their kids are involved in gangs. Sometimes parents think my kid is just walking around with a group of kids, but not really understanding or knowing what these kids are doing. So there's a lot of denial within various communities in relation to gangs, and that is why gangs thrive. Because if you hide the disease or you don't want to discuss and talk about it, that's when the disease starts, multiplying and growing into various communities.
I mean, at this stage, would you say the communities feel paralyzed by the amount of gangs that are, in the system and how they're taking control of many communities?
I think there's a lot of fear that plays. Fear plays a very big role in many of the communities that we work in. A fear of talking and saying what's going on. A fear of really going out there and saying that we want to take back our streets. Because they're afraid of even themselves being hurt in the process. A fear of trust, because they don't know who to turn to or who to trust in processes like that. So there's a lot of fear that plays a pivotal role in this.
And law enforcement, and oftentimes we see that the last time there was a deployment of the military, we also saw the capacity being increased against for the South African Police Service. But it looks as though again and again we see, gangsterism, rear its ugly head up. Does that mean that law enforcement has actually failed South African communities?
From where we're sitting, and we work with a lot of law enforcement. We work with the Sophia Town Police Station, which is basically based in Westbury. We also work with the Department of Community Safety. I mean, these guys are really doing an awesome work. But like I said, if the problem or the community itself does not come to the party, or various other stakeholders refuse to come to the party, it makes the job a bit difficult, because one person goes his way, the other one goes their way. So there's a whole lot of dynamics that are going on within communities right now. And as I said, fear plays a pivotal role in all of that.
Yeah. But then how does one protect their child from even joining a gang? Is there any way of almost preventing rather than finding a cure for a child within a gang system?
The most, idea that works best is for parents to be aware of who their children's friends are, of parents to be aware of the fact that when kids come home with cell phones or techies or things that they've not given them, to question and to actually be present as parents, and not constantly think that when my child is at school, it's the school's problem. When my child is at church, it's the church's problem. I think it's a role of parents having to take accountability for their own kids, predominantly.
And do you think that there's still, with that denialism, will it end anytime soon? I mean, if I think that my child is the perfect little angel, I'm going to do little to intervene.
And I think that's predominantly what we're currently doing right now, is that we're trying to gear parents into understanding the greater damage that they are creating by constantly denying the fact that their children are actual, in gangs. And so that's the real current problem that we're dealing with right now. It's denialism about parents not wanting to take accountability and saying that, you know what, my child became a gangster at school, my child became a gangster on the street. But your child has to come home. And when your child does come home, what's the conversation that you're having? Are you present in your child's life? That's the most important thing.
We'll leave it there. Bright Spark Foundation SA Director, welcome Witboy there, just giving us insights. Why do young people keep joining gangs? And is there any way of finally winning the war against gangsterism in the country? Well,